The sun hung low over the quiet suburban street, casting a warm golden glow on rows of freshly mowed lawns and neatly painted fences. Laughter drifted through the air, carried on the scent of slow-cooked ribs, freshly baked cornbread, and sweet peach pie cooling somewhere nearby. In the backyard of a large cream-colored house with navy shutters, white folding chairs lined a grassy aisle, strings of fairy lights swayed gently overhead, and a soft hum of music from a live jazz trio floated out over the fence. It was a day of joy, of promise, of family coming together. But on the other side of that fence, in the shade of a maple tree, a woman named Margaret Dawson stood with her arms folded tightly across her chest, lips pressed in a thin line. Her pale blue eyes flicked toward the people gathering in the yard next door, mostly black men and women dressed in their Sunday best. Children darting around in little tuxedos and flower girl dresses. Margaret's grip on her phone tightened. She'd only moved here last year, but she'd always prided herself on keeping the neighborhood quiet. And to her, the laughter, the clinking glasses, the bright splashes of color, was not quiet. She raised the phone to her ear, not even bothering to mask her scowl. "Yes, I'd like to report." "A disturbance," she said, voice low but firm. "It's a party. Loud. Lots of people. I don't feel safe." In the backyard, the bride, Tamara, didn't notice the phone call at all. She was radiant, her hair styled in soft curls beneath a lace veil, her white gown hugging her frame perfectly as the sunlight kissed the beading along the bodice. Friends straightened the aisle runner, uncles adjusted camera tripods, and cousins chased toddlers between the chairs. The groom, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a tailored navy suit, was inside the house, adjusting his tie in the mirror. His name was Andre Williams, and today was the happiest day of his life. He had spent weeks making sure every detail would be perfect for Tamara. From the flowers flown in from Savannah to the locally hired jazz band that played her favorite Coltrane piece. As he took one last look in the mirror, he didn't think about politics, about work, about the stress of the office. Today he wasn't Mayor Williams. He was just a man marrying the love of his life. Out front, the faint sound of tires crunching on asphalt interrupted the music. Two police SUVs rolled slowly down the street, their lights flashing silently. The driver's side door of the lead vehicle opened, and Officer Reed stepped out, his expression unreadable. Margaret stepped forward, from her position under the maple, gesturing quickly toward the backyard like she was pointing out a crime scene. "There," she said to the approaching officers, her voice tinged with urgency. "I told you, loud music, way too many people. I think they're trespassing, or I don't know." She let the words hang in the air, hinting at something dangerous without actually saying it. Ow. Officer Reed glanced over the fence and froze for just a fraction of a second at the sight of the string lights and neatly arranged wedding chairs. He saw guests chatting, glasses of champagne in hand, and a little boy in a tiny suit trying to balance a cupcake on his head. This wasn't the chaos he'd expected. His partner, Officer Martinez, joined him, eyebrows knitting. "Ma'am," Reed said slowly, "this looks like a private event." But Margaret shook her head sharply. "Look at them. Oh, there's got to be 50 people back there. We have neighborhood regulations. It's too loud. This kind of thing doesn't belong. Here." She dropped her voice and added, "And I've seen some of those men hanging around before. You never know." Inside, Andre heard the murmur from the front yard. His best man, Darnell, peeked through the blinds and swore under his breath. "Dre, cops." For a moment, Andre's jaw tightened, not from fear, but from a deep, familiar frustration. He'd dealt with situations like this before, the subtle accusation, the assumption that a gathering of black friends and family was suspicious. He pulled the curtain back slightly and saw the officers talking to a woman he recognized as the neighbor who never returned a wave. Tamara appeared beside him, her brow furrowing. "What's going on?" He placed a calming hand over hers. "It's just a misunderstanding." But his mind was already moving quickly. He wasn't about to let this woman's call ruin their day. Adjusting his jacket, he stepped onto the porch. The conversation in the front yard quieted instantly when he appeared. Officer Reed blinked in surprise, recognition flickering across his face. Margaret turned toward Andre, ready to unload a rehearsed tirade about noise ordinances and community safety, but her voice caught when she saw him. He wasn't just tall and commanding, carried himself with a quiet authority that made the space around him feel smaller. Reed straightened his posture. "Mayor Williams." Margaret's head snapped toward the officer. "Mayor," she repeated, like she couldn't quite process the words. Andre descended the porch steps slowly, his gaze steady on her. "Yes, I'm Mayor Williams," he said evenly. "And this," he gestured toward the backyard, "is my wedding day." A ripple of shock went through the small cluster of onlookers who had wandered out front to see what was going on. Reed cleared his throat, suddenly aware of how bad this looked. 2 patrol cars called to shut down the mayor's wedding because a neighbor had felt unsafe. Margaret's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, but no words came out. She simply stood there, frozen, as the sound of soft jazz and laughter spilled out from the backyard. Undercutting every word she might have said, Andre didn't raise his voice, but every word carried weight. "You've brought police to my door in front of my family on the most important day of my life. Do you know how that feels?" Margaret swallowed hard, but the lump in her throat stayed. Around them, murmurs of support rose from wedding guests who had drifted forward, curiosity pulling them to the front yard. Aunt Loretta, clutching her pearls, whispered fiercely to the person beside her, "Lord, the nerve." Officer Martinez shifted uncomfortably, glancing between Reed and the mayor. "Sir, we received a complaint." "We didn't know." Andre held up a hand, stopping him gently. "I understand you have to respond to calls. But I also know there are better ways to assess a situation than walking in ready to suspect the worst." Reed nodded slightly, the shame flickering across his features. Behind Andre, Tamara had stepped out onto the porch. Her gown caught the sunlight like 1,000 tiny stars. The scene was so incongruous, a bride in her wedding dress, speaking to uniformed officers, that Reed felt the absurdity deep in his gut. Margaret's voice came back in a rush, but it was shaky now. I didn't know it was a wedding," she stammered. "I thought, well, there were so many people." She stopped when she realized how weak it sounded. Andre took a measured step closer, his shadow overlapping hers. "You thought what?" he asked quietly. His tone wasn't angry, but it had the precision of someone who wanted an honest answer. Margaret's eyes darted toward the group of black men laughing near the fence, champagne flutes in hand, and then to the women adjusting the bride's train. She didn't say the word, but the implication hung in the humid air between them. From the yard, Darnell called out with a smirk, "Mayor, the vows ain't gonna wait forever, man." The guests chuckled softly, easing some of the tension. Andre's lips curved into a faint smile, but his eyes never left Margaret. "This is my family, my friends, my community, and they belong here every bit as much as you do." The officers exchanged a glance, silently agreeing there was nothing to be done here. At least, nothing that would justify their presence any longer. Reed cleared his throat. "We'll let you get back to your day, Mayor. Congratulations." "To you and your bride," he gave Tamara a respectful nod before turning back toward the patrol car. Martinez followed, but before climbing in, Reed paused, lowering his voice so only Andre could hear. "Sir, for what it's worth, you handled that better than most would have." Andre inclined his head in quiet acknowledgement. Margaret stood stiffly in place, color high in her cheeks, as the flashing lights disappeared down the street. The neighborhood seemed to exhale collectively. Children's laughter rose again from the backyard, music swelled, and the smell of barbecue reclaimed the air. Andre didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Simply looked at Margaret with a mixture of disappointment and resolve. "You're welcome to join us, you know," he said finally. The offer landed like a stone in her chest, unexpected and heavy. For a moment, she just stared at him, searching his face for sarcasm or judgment, but finding none. She shook her head faintly. I don't think that would be a good idea." Andre nodded once. "That's your choice." Without another word, he turned and offered his arm to Tamara. Together they walked back into the backyard, where applause and cheers greeted them like sunlight breaking through clouds. As the couple stood before the officiant, the world beyond the fence seemed to fade away. Tamara's hands trembled slightly in Andre's, but her eyes shone. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded, smiling through the mist in her gaze. "Better than okay. You just reminded everyone why they voted for you." He chuckled softly, squeezing her fingers. The vows flowed, the music swelled, and the scent of flowers mingled with the warm summer air. Somewhere beyond the fence, Margaret lingered in the shadows of her porch. Her phone still in hand, but her expression changed. The tight scowl gone, replaced by something unreadable.